It's a beautiful Wednesday morning, and my morning quote for you this morning will be positive anything is better than negative nothing. This quote means you should always prioritize positivity, take action, be optimistic, and ensure progress over perfection. Welcome to West Breakfast hashtag What Are You Saying, where we address issues ranging from politics to governance, health and wellness, AI innovations, and every trending issues. My name is Omotoshola Sharimaki. And with me this morning are the ladies. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys.
It's been a minute. How have you been? I
I've been
mean,
good. Canada has been so amazing.
oh God.
You knew that was coming. I was going to just play pranks on you all, but it's been amazing. I'm glad to be back here. I've missed you guys.
We miss you as well.
Thank you.
Welcome. Hey, Mama. How you doing?
I'm fine.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How do you feel?
I feel sharp. I feel okay. It's Wednesday. Yeah, I woke up a little bit from. I don't want to use the word wrong side of the bed, but I woke up a little bit of. I'm trying to look for the right word, but I woke up a little bit of health deficiency. I don't know if it's but I think I feel better, and I hope it doesn't get worse as the day goes by.
I think it's a morning thing. Anytime you wake up in the morning, you just don't want to start your day until you remember that you have to make money.
Well,
It pushes you up
it's
your
not every
feet, and
time,
then
oh.
not every time. You
There are
wake up
sometimes
always
when you
excited.
actually wake up and you probably wake up with,
Energy.
an increasement, in your account. And you're like,
Okay, that one is the
You know, that's
motivation.
Like the
Yeah,
song we were singing, Jesus dash me 10 billion.
exactly. So
That's a good motivation.
some days are like that.
If you are here to subscribe to our YouTube channel, to be honest, I really do not know why you've not subscribed and why you've not shared to family and friends. So you have the opportunity once again, as official of Great TV, to click the subscribe button, like and share the links to family and friends. Today, we will be talking about Dangote Refinery. How realistic is 600 naira per liter? And we will be joined later by an energy expert to have this conversation to help us unpack this topic. Right now, we will be going on a break to return with our headlines across the globe. Please be on standby. Glad to have you back from that break. Now let's take a look at the pages of today's newspaper. And today we will be reviewing the Guardian newspaper, the Punch newspaper, and the New York Times. I will be starting with the Guardian newspaper, where the major headline touches on the National Health Insurance Act. It reads 2 years after state enrolled under roll as 90% Nigerians still pay out of pocket. Right beside it, reps on Braid Wahek for failing to account for 5 billion naira calculators. Benue farmers panic over persisting drought. Chairman affirms 26 embattled Rivers lawmakers as APC members. And under 8, Obasanjo IBB absent as Buhari Jonathan ex-leaders pass vote of confidence in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And from the metro scene, 16 died, 17 injured in Ibadan multiple road crash. Under it, custom Nigerians food import surged 95.28% to 920.54 billion naira in first quarter of 2024. Then manufacturing FMCG, which is fast-moving fast-growing business firms, post 25% losses as demands plummet. And I think the final news touches on EFCC stakes 50 billion naira fund warns against abuse of fund. The story that piqued my interest is that of the Ibadan crash. It's been all over social media space where 16 persons died, 17 injured in Ibadan. Multiple road crash. For more details, go to the pages of the Guardian newspaper. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper.
Punch, we have the major headline reading: Federal government blocks 83 billion naira protest funds, arrests political collaborators. And government uncovers $50 million crypto funds, blocks 4 digital wallets containing $3.8 million. Police to declare foreign agents wanted, traces 4 billion naira to Kano, Abuja, Katsina political bigwigs. Above the major headline, we see EFCC donates 50 billion naira crime proceeds to the NEL Fund, and NLPCL postpones Port Harcourt Refinery kick-off 6th time. 4.2 trillion naira foreign MOUs signed under Tinubu. Below that, we see TUC backs 5 million naira monthly pay for judges and 16 confirmed dead in Oyo multiple crashes. NJC to select Ariwola's successor on Friday. Federal government unveils plans to bring back 12,400 jackpot doctors and 109 senators earn 1.4 billion naira annually. The news I just took before this last one says federal government unveils plans to bring back 12,400 jackpot doctors, and a very noble act, I must say. I saw the statistics on the very major the details of the story. It says that we have 67% of Nigerian trained doctors that are practicing in the United Kingdom alone. And we know how, the exodus, the migration of our health professionals to other countries have really affected us as a whole. And now the Nigerian government is becoming more concerned about this and putting out policies that will ensure that our health professionals would remain in the country by providing incentives and many of all those many things they said. So let's see how it goes.
What I would just say to that, because I saw yesterday, and when I read that, it was just a very big smile on my face, So it's one thing to actually, create our policies and to ensure that, okay, these are doctors that are well-trained here in Nigeria, don't go outside the country to practice, because the truth is, take it or leave it, we'll be the ones suffering for it. Imagine people that are experts are not in the country that's supposed to be, taking care of us as individuals here in the health sector. They now leave the country and go outside the country to, help people outside there. That's why the country will continue to be developed.
Exactly.
Why we'll still be undergoing underdevelopment, or we will not be carrying the name developing country. But now it's not about the policy; it's by implementation.
How do we bring them
exactly? So it's not by waking up one morning and saying, "Oh, we don't want these people to jackpot. We want, let's create that policy to hinder or to stop them." But you have to now help them with, adequate facilities that will ensure that these people, when they stay here in the country, they don't start looking for facilities, reasons to leave. Exactly. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, let's take a look at the New York Times.
All right, so the New York newspaper, left side of the newspaper, has toll in Europe from 23 hit for the 7,000 death. Step to adapt saved thousands of lives. All right, by the right side, we have officials battle disinformation, delodging voters. Next to that, we have, that's the middle of the newspaper, we have ground old parties, that's the GOP, quit calls to void health law. Next to that, immigrants becoming citizens at quicker pace. Beneath that, we have gamer live-streamed troubles to psychiatrists. Was it ethical? That's a question. The next to that, which is the last headline on the newspaper, has wars ended his 24-year military career with a hard decision. So the one I want to quickly touch on is the one that says that's the one happening in Europe. So 23 hit for the 7,000 death. Steps to adapt save thousands of lives. So in 2023, as recorded, Europe's hottest year on record, over 47,000 deaths were attributed to heat, according to a report in Nature Medicine. Now the troll could have been 80% higher without advancement in healthcare, air conditioning, and public awareness. So for those over 80, the death rate might have doubled. The study based on death records from 35 countries and analyzing weekly temperature data highlighted, the urgent need to address climate change as a health issue. So this is actually quite quite sad that heat is now, part of the things that are causing death in Europe right now. And I mean, it makes me think that, okay, here in Nigeria, we are always complaining about our climate change. We're always complaining about the fact that everywhere is too hot and all of that. The fact that, I mean, in Europe now, a lot of people, once you just hear this person is dead or something, it's kind of resulting to heat, everywhere is hot and all of these things. So, I mean, the fact that they're already working towards making sure that, I mean, having like the air conditioning now, even for the less privileged, giving them, do I say palliative now to ensure that they are better and all of those things. I think it's time for them to start working on it because, I mean, 47,000 deaths, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Thank you very much for taking us through that route. Now let's take a break. When we return, we'll be coming back with our guests to have the conversation on how realistic 600 naira per litre can be with the sales of petrol. We'll be right back after this break. You're welcome back to the show. As mentioned earlier, we will be discussing today. We're diving into some significant shifts in Nigeria's energy sector, with recent projections suggesting that petrol could soon sell for 600 naira per litre due to the Dangote Refinery and the new price cuts for diesel and aviation fuel. There are widespread implications for both the energy and daily life. To help us understand these changes, we have an energy expert with us, a resourceful C-suite executive with work experience spanning over 3 decades in person of Gbolahan, Olojede. Good morning to you, sir. Glad to have you join us this morning.
Good morning. Nice to be on the program.
Thank you very much for coming. So we want to talk about how realistic this 600 naira per litre might be. I like to make reference to a couple things. Excuse me. Now, I want to talk about so many things about this Dangote Refinery. There have been a lot of back and forth about it. Oh, this person is coming out to say, let's not do this. Let's chill. Don't worry, by July we'll start selling. Now they're saying by August we'll start selling. We don't know how realistic this thing is. Now, to access the realism of 600 naira per litre, we have to factor in a lot of things. Things like production costs, things like crude oil prices, things like market demand, also technological efficiencies, among others. Now, after thinking of all of these things, Dangote is a businessman, not a charity home, not an NGO. After considering all of these things, among others, how realistic is 600 naira per litre?
Well, I mean, you literally answered the question. Dangote is a private business. So it has its own cost profile and profit target. So these are the things that will drive the actual price that it will be willing to sell the product. However, if somebody else is coming into that middle and saying, look, sell for this amount, if that amount is below what it will have wanted to sell for by virtue of his own cost profile and profit target, then that person that is saying sell at this particular price must be willing to pay the difference. So it is possible that it will be 600 based on his own cost profile. If the cost is more than that, if he cannot afford to sell for 600, If someone is compelling, maybe the government is saying you must sell for 600, then that means government must be willing to pay the difference between how much it wanted to sell and how much the government wants Dangote to sell. That is the explanation how that can work out. So it's not enough. We won't be able to command the price into place. It's not something you can put in place by fiat. There are several factors that will determine the price. So that is the reality. Maybe it's possible. It also may not happen.
Thank you very much for your comments. Having seen this topic, I looked through some comments that I saw online, and there are different approaches to this. We have the economist approach. We have people that are in the government position. Then we also have ourselves who are consumers who want to better our lives. And we have seen how that the current prices of things have really caused some economic strain. So do you think it's so that the 600 naira per litre would actually affect or increase the... let me better put my question. Could we see prices stabilize or even decrease if the refinery operates at full capacity? So let's just look at this from the lens of the consumer ourselves. Do we see it better our lives? I know she mentioned that Dangote is not in the NGO or he's not trying to do this to just help Nigerians. He's looking for profit as well. But we are not even looking at whatever Dangote is looking at. We're looking at how it can better our own life. So do you see this as that hope that we Nigerians have been looking for?
Well, a cheaper PMS price than what we are currently paying is definitely something that is good for us. As consumers, everybody wants to be able to pay less. So it will help because you have a situation in which the amount that each consumer spent on fuel will reduce. That means they will have more disposable income at the disposal. So that is a good thing for every consumer. The reality, however, is that this 600 may not happen. It may happen. In fact, it may be 500. It depends on the cost profile issue that we spoke about. It may even be less. It may go back all the way to 480. It all depends on what is crude price saying in the market. How much is it buying its crude? What is his own operational cost? What is his profit target? That would determine that. What is sure, however, is that government is also looking at alternative source of energy. So PMS is what we are used to for probably decades now. I mean, that's what we're used to as a source of powering the system. So our vehicles, the small generators, all these things run on PMS. So we're used to PMS. But the government is trying to also now promote an alternative energy which is said to be much cheaper and more efficient, that which is the CNG option. So while the PMS is there from the refinery, we also now have to be able to speed up government action or put pressure on them to rev up activities along the path of the alternative energy, which is CNG. If we have an alternative, it will help tremendously to balance things, rather than everybody and everything being around PMS.
So, before, that was supposed to be like the question I wanted to ask you, but you already answered it. Because, I feel like if we bring in the CNG, it was in the news. It has always been in the newspapers for some time now. If you bring in the CNG, it kind of helps, the fuel price and all of those things to reduce. Given that, a lot of people want to start using or want to start going for the CNG buses and vehicles and like that. But now I want to ask you, right? So this all issue, we've always had fuel issue from initials. But when it came into play and it took out the fuel subsidy, it the problem that we just had kind of tripled. So people were now of the opinion or perspective that, okay, as many as had a plan B or a plan C, yeah, we will not be where we are now. So, let me ask you, the question now is, what do you think would have been the plan B or plan C? Because I also hear Tinubu when he says that he doesn't want to, trying to solve a problem, yeah? So why use a temporary solution instead of a permanent one? So that's what I'm asking you now. So what do you think of the fuel subsidy And what do you think the plan B or plan C would have been?
The first subsidy matter is a very serious issue.
Okay.
We have been used to it for decades, maybe 50 years. I mean, since 1970, I can't remember, 70 something, when there was a major rise in crude oil prices internationally. That was when subsidy crept into the system, and it has been there since that time. So for probably 50 years, we have been used to that system of subsidy. But it's also becoming an unsustainable thing, so it had to go. Maybe not the way it went. Maybe the plan B and plan C were not at the right level when we dispatched the subsidy. But that is not in the past. Unfortunately, subsidy was removed when it was removed. So where we are right now is to be able to say, okay, maybe we were not ready when it was initially removed. So the alternative energy sources, which will help us to cushion the effect, is what we now have to deal with, which is why CNG is in that space. The other thing that complicated the subsidy removal issue was also the unification of the exchange rate. So that exchange rate problem created a major situation in which the exchange rate of the naira to the dollar, the naira depreciated very dramatically. Now you are talking of a product that we are not producing in the country, which means we have to spend money to bring in this product into the country, and the amount we used to spend to bring it in, because the naira has depreciated, a naira that used to be 500 or 600 went all the way to 1,500. It means that it would take a whole lot more naira to bring those fuel into the system, and that has eroded even the issue of fuel subsidy being removed. As we are speaking today, there is fuel subsidy in the system. There is already a subsidy. That is the reality because of that complication that the exchange rate problem brought to the table. So if you ask me, two things we must do very quickly.
Okay.
Number one is rev up on the activities around the CNG to present an alternative to us. That is number one. Number two, we must also ensure that the refinery project succeed. There is a private refinery, a major one is the refinery, and then there are also the government refineries. There are 4 government refineries in this country. So if we can ensure that this refinery project succeed, both private and public, and if we want, we can rev up on the alternative energy, which is being proposed as CNG at this time, we will be able to have a better situation in the country. So all the fears about the high cost of energy might actually get moderated if we're able to pursue these two issues that I mentioned.
Mr. Olojede, thank you very much for explaining. You mentioned something the other time that we should ensure that the refineries we have at the moment succeed, both the Dangote refinery and that of the federal government in Port Harcourt and some other parts of the country. I'm curious to know, let's just assume, because we are not sure yet, let's assume that 600 naira per litre will be very visible. How will it affect the current state of economy in Nigeria? Speak of inflation, speak of consumer spending, speak economic indicator, speak of transportation for both businesses and individuals. How will it affect? Will it probably reduce cost of things, or we are still going to be in that level for like 3 months before it starts to go down gradually?
Okay. Once we have a cheaper, once we have to pay less for fuel, it will automatically improve the situations we have with inflation. And the reason, and it will also bolster the economy on a general basis. And this is the reason. Maybe before the removal of the subsidy, I used to spend 20% of my income on fuel or on transportation, 20%. But because of the dramatic increase in fuel price, I now spend 40 or 50%. I'm just using arbitrary percentages now. Because of that, I used to spend 20, I'm now spending 40%. It means that the disposable income that I have, that I can use to consume other things, have been curtailed. I used to earn 100 naira and spend only 20 naira on fuel. Now I'm spending 40 naira. If that should be reduced to say 30 naira, I have an additional 10 naira that I can spend on other needs. So I can consume other services and goods. And these are the kind of things that work to stimulate the economy when people can consume other things. It will also now reduce inflation. So the transportation cost that used to be 10 naira has now become 8 naira. It means that my cost profile has gone down, and therefore I can pass on the benefit onto the consumers of whatever I produce. So inflation will definitely go down. Economic activities will be further stimulated if we're able to moderate the cost of living crisis that we are currently facing.
This has been, so insightful this past few minutes that we've spent dissecting this topic. But I have another concern that I'd like you to, help us address so that other people that are listening to this can also gain from here. So you mentioned that the success of this refinery, the private refineries, and even the government-owned refineries is what we should be concerned about. But there's also, to be very honest, the concerns of monopoly and market dynamics. And let's say this kicks up and it's working, the 600 naira, 480, 500, even lesser becomes a reality. Should we be concerned about monopoly from Dangote himself, or do you think that the government regulation is enough to keep that in check? What's your say about that, sir?
I think the issue of monopoly is overplayed. I've heard people talk about, Dangote is a monopoly in cement. And I said, what about Boa Cement? What about Lafarge? These are other major producers of cement. And people can check out the capacity of those cement companies. I only mention Lafarge and Boa because they are big. There are probably 10 or 15 others that are in that space. So maybe the issue of Dangote is a monopoly is being overplayed. The same thing you will see in the sugar space. There are at least about 4 other big players in the sugar space. It's not just Dangote Sugar that is there. So I don't think that, technically speaking, what we're talking about fits into monopoly. The same thing applies to the issues of refinery. Dangote Refinery is said to have a 650,000 barrels per day capacity processing, 650,000. The government refineries have about 445,000 barrels. There is Walter Smith, there is Aradel, there are a few other refineries, private refineries, that are coming up into that PMS space. So I think the issue of monopoly may not be there unless the authorities that are supposed to watch that space decide to go to sleep. There are the regulatory authorities who have the duty to ensure that private initiative cannot fleece or do not fleece the public, the members of the public. And we see that in industry like the communication system, where you cannot just arbitrarily increase your tariff without a proper engagement with the NCC, which is a regulatory authority in that space. So an MTN or an Airtel or any of the players cannot wake up and say, oh, from tomorrow, this is how much you pay. Okay. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. Now, in the space of refinery, while there are private initiatives like the Dangote, there is also public initiative like all our refineries. It is better we're able to make as many of these refinery projects to happen. And this will help to allay the fears around monopoly. If all we got at the end of the day is just the Dangote refinery working, then we have a monopoly on our hands. And that is not good. But if we're able to support that private initiative and also ensure that the government refineries are operational, then the fear of a monopoly is moderated.
All right, so let's speak a bit about this fear now, right? Because I mean, I think during the time where this whole Dangote refinery came into play, I think there was a paper I was reading where it was stated something around the fact that Dangote wanted to sell, or they were telling Dangote to sell his refinery to the NNPC. So I don't know how sure or how truthful that particular story is, but I would want to ask you now. Let's take out the CNG out of this now. Let's talk about fuel in general. What's the future looking like in Nigeria?
Okay, I'll quickly comment on the earlier one. Government has an interest. Initially, government was to take about 20 or 21% of Dangote refinery. Government did make an initial payment to acquire the shares, but there was supposed to be a subsequent payment, which according to, from all indications, government could not meet that second payment. Therefore, its stakeholding went down from about 21% to 7%. Can Dangote refinery be sold to NNPC right now? I don't think so. Dangote refinery is about we're being to about 20 billion US dollars. So how is NNPC going to pay for that if NNPC wants to buy? So that may not happen now. What may eventually happen is I foresee Dangote refinery selling a part of the business to the public via an initial public offer where members of the public can also buy shares in Dangote refinery, like we did with Dangote cement, with Dangote sugar. So all those can happen. Your next question, I think I lost track of what that your next question was.
Okay, so I was saying what the future is, but I would want to talk a bit about what you just said. So did you say Dangote is paying them a certain percentage? I want to know why, like what for? I want to understand that in particular. Then I was saying about the future. How do you see, the future of Nigeria, given that we have Dangote now Dangote refinery now in Nigeria, or here in Nigeria, rather?
Okay, what I said was at some point, the federal government wanted to take a stake. Okay. So let's say Dangote owns 100% the refinery, and government is saying, I would like to buy 20% of this, your 100.
Okay.
So that was arranged. So government made some payment to be able to acquire this 20%. But there was to be a subsequent payment which government did not come up with.
Okay.
So what it means is that effectively the amount of the slice of that refineries that government owns will be based on the payment that government was able to come up with. And for now, that is said to be about 7% of the entire 100%. So, which will mean that Dangote still owns about 93% of that refinery, while government has 7% of it.
Okay.
Now, what will likely now happen along the line is that Dangote may still decide to sell further out of that 93 that it is holding. It might do an IPO in which it will invite members of the public to come and buy into the company. So it may decide to sell a certain percentage, which will be determined by him and his advisors over time. So in terms of the future, you see, we must power this country. Anyhow we want to do it, we must power the country. For so long, we have depended on fuels such as PMS, diesel, and all the rest. But Nigeria, incidentally, as much as we're blessed with the crude oil, we are blessed even more with gas. So when we're talking about the future, there are several issues that are in that space right now. Okay. You have the fight against fossil fuel. So globally, there are major campaigns against fossil fuel. The question that a country like ours must be asking is to say, okay, Western countries, now you are fighting against fossil fuel. After you have used fossil fuel to develop your own economy, what will happen to those countries like Nigeria that have been heavily dependent on fossil fuel? That is number one. Number two will be to say, oh, Nigeria, this global campaign that is going on, don't let it catch you unaware. You must be asking yourself as a country, what is my life after fossil fuel? How will I survive if I have been dependent on fossil fuel as the source of my foreign exchange earnings? So that is another question. Yet another question is for Nigeria to be asking itself and actually join the campaign for gas as an energy of transition. So gas is cleaner than crude oil. So rather than say, eliminate fossil fuel totally, let's move from crude oil to gas, which is a cleaner form of fossil fuel as a transition energy. In that consideration, it's something like LPG and CNG initiative, they come readily handy. To be frank, I don't think the world can do without fossil fuel over the next 20, 30 years. So there is still a lot of time. But you see, time can roll past very fast. Because time can move very fast, things can move against us very fast as well. So as a country, we must begin to think of life after fossil fuel. We must begin to think of gas as an energy of transition. In between fossil and renewable is gas, and we are blessed with gas. So while fossil fuel still has value as a country, we must make the best of it. Make the best of it now and get investment into that place so that by the time we are transiting into petrochemicals, or by the time the world has transited into petrochemicals and renewables, we will not be left behind as a country.
You talked about the Western entities the other time. When I come back from this break, we're going to dive deeper into the view and the speculations that trended over the weekend about reports from these Western entities. Let's take this quick break. When we return, the conversation still continues. You welcome back to the show. We're still having a conversation of how realistic 600 naira per litre for fuel prices can be achieved with the Dangote Refinery, of course. And we are still speaking with Mr. Gbolahan Olojede, and he has been doing justice to this conversation. Now, over the weekend, David Hude, an investigative journalist, came out and said that a Western entity paid him 800,000 naira to write something bad about the refinery. He said it was paid 800. It was to be paid 800,000 naira to say that the refinery has environmental hazard and should not be entertained in the whole of Africa. Now, this thing is no more a case of Nigeria days or politician days. It was a case of some foreign bodies out of Nigeria do not want Africa as a whole to grow. They feel like this thing is a threat to their own refinery, their own oil production, importing and exporting. What say you about this thing? Or is it just is it just fallacy, or is there an atom of truth in this speculation?
The way international economics, international politics, geopolitics play out is something that is being brought into our awareness by that story. When it comes to stories like that, or when it comes to the international space, what drives attitudes of nations, actions of nations in what is called national interest? So I'm just going to use an arbitrary example. Let's say I am country A, and I have been a supplier, a provider of refined products to Nigeria. And refining has been a major part of my economy, employing a lot of people, providing income for a lot of people, providing taxes for government. The question is, if Nigeria now says, my own refineries will start working, which means it may not need me any longer, how will I react? I will react in such a way as to protect my own thought, because in reality, I don't give a hoot about what happens to Nigeria. That is none of my business. It is what happens to me and to my country that is of primary interest to me. That is the national interest. It could also go beyond national interest to individual interest. So maybe it's a private business that is out there providing this same commodity, this same product. And its market is about to be taken away. That individual, that corporate entity will fight back. And such fight back do not only happen at the international space, it will even happen within Nigeria entity itself. Because there are also interests within the entity that make money by the status quo. It is if the refineries don't work, that is how they make money. If we have to continue. So if they work, it will affect their own economies, and therefore they will fight against the refineries working. These are realities of the marketplace. It is now left for us as a country. It is now left for us, for the top decision makers, to ask what exactly we want as a country and what they want for us as a country. And that will drive the amount of political will that they're able to put on the table to resolve the matter and ensure that this project do not fail. It is a well-established fact that the success of the projects are threats to interests within and outside of the country. And those interests, as much as possible, will push back to ensure that the projects will not succeed, because the success affects them negatively. So, Mr. President is the number one, because all the bucks eventually stop at his table. And then Nigeria as a country, so he must ask the question what he wants for the country and do the best in the interest of the country in that particular space. But that by mundane, that's the way it works. It's a reality of the system.
Thank you very much. We need to open our phone lines for our viewers to call in to let us know their thoughts. Our phone lines will be open now. Call in, send your messages via our different social media platforms, and it will be read out and done justice to. You wanted to say something?
Yes, I have another question to ask based on what she said. So it was just going to transcend from there. So we have to consider the global oil markets with all of this conversation. I want to ask you, sir, what do you think would be at stake for the Western world if this refinery kicks off and it is fully optimized?
If it kicks off and it's fully optimized, maybe I should talk about some of the benefits for Nigeria. I mean, apart from the employment side of things, two major things. One is the fact that we spend a lot of our hard-earned currency effects buying this refined product from other countries. So it means that if our own starts to work, we can save a good part of that effect that we spend importing. Number two, if all these refineries start to work, then we are probably going to produce more than we consume. Don't forget that those are our consumption figures. Nobody knows exactly what those figures are right now.
Yeah.
But we will produce more than we are able to consume. So we'll be able to export. When we export, we will earn foreign exchange again. So those two bases are very solid reasons for us to ensure that these things will succeed. Apart from that, it's a major project. It's a project, the Dangote Refinery signposts where we need to be in several parts of our industrial life in Nigeria. We're a country that have been used to exporting primary commodities without adding any value. You just produce the cocoa and you dry the cocoa and ship it to the people that will use it to do chocolate. After they've done the chocolate, you went there and you import the chocolate back to the country to use. The same thing we'll do with crude. So we produce the crude, and this crude is is even coming out by itself in some part of the Niger Delta. Then we export the crude to other countries to refine, and we go to those countries and buy the refined product. Who says we cannot add value? It is in the place of adding value that we can begin to industrialize and grow this economy the way it ought to be grown. So the Dangote refineries and other private initiatives are helping to drive thinking in the right direction, that we need to stop these issues of exporting primary product and start to export value-add products. So those are very important thing part to lay down. Then the other subsequent one, I think I probably lost track of what your second comment was about.
The question was about the impact of what we're trying to do as a nation, this refinery, the impact of it to the Western world. Do you think that they're at a loss, or should we consider, stuff like that?
Yeah, for those who have made it their business to export refined products to Nigeria for 50 years, it will impact those companies that are out there. I won't even be surprised that there are refineries that are particularly set up with Nigeria in focus. I mean, I've seen that in other parts of the economy, where I had a transaction in Benin Republic some years ago. And the people that were involved were saying that we're setting this thing up for Nigerians. So essentially, they know that Nigerians will probably not bother to do their own, or they would rather go out there and consume what other people have done or are doing. So where refineries that have been, sending this thing to us for 50 years, as far as they are concerned, they are not going to be happy that Nigeria can now refine its crude.
This is really heartbreaking that, other countries will have to start doing something on your behalf. Yeah. Since, on I no one do them now, make Kukuma do them for now. And, because at the end of the day, they would literally be the one profiting, yeah? Yes. And we'll still be here complaining that we are underdeveloping, we are developing, wherever we are. But, let's talk a bit about the new one that we want to bring on board now. That's the CNG, right? I would want you to expatiate extensively now. How do you think this should be implemented? Because, of course, we'll have challenges. Like I said, it is already heartbreaking enough. So, honestly, I did not know that there are other countries that have to build something in the name of another country. It is, I don't know the right word to use, but that's actually very, very, very sad. So I would want you to expatiate for us, how do you think this should be implemented, given that, of course, there'll be challenges. And this one that I want to do now, I hope the government gets to watch this video so that they understand, because we don't want a scenario whereby, it's not even a laughing matter, honestly speaking, because this is actually very painful, yeah? Look, okay, thank God you already attest to it that if this fuel, whatever now, starts to reduce, the prices of fuel reduces, of course, it definitely would, show in other aspects or other, sectors of life. So I would want you to help us, with the implementation. How do you think it should be implemented?
Well, implementation will require funding.
Okay.
It will require incentives because the government have been the champion. The government have been championing this initiative, but you see, government does not have enough funds to fund it by itself. So government will depend on the private sector to bring funds into that place. So when the private sector is bringing funds, there are several considerations. there is the incentive that government can put on the table and say, oh, if you're a private sector and you want to come and invest in this space, let me encourage you by this and this and this. It could be a tax incentive, it could be whatever, but there has to be an incentive to encourage private funding to flow into that space. Number two, the regulatory framework, the legal framework, the institutional framework has to be right. When we talk about, ease of doing business in Nigeria and all of that, that is what it refers to for the most part. So the entire gamut of framework that will ensure that people are excited to bring money into that space have to be put in place, from regulatory to legal to institutional. They have to be good enough. Then infrastructure, which is part of where this private sector money will go into, private investment will go into. We have been used to PMS. So filling station, we've been building filling stations for decades. And almost every corner you turn, there's a filling station for you there. If we're adopting a new energy source to power our cars, as one of the things it will power, of course, CNG are being used to power generic, can power literally anything. It means that those infrastructure must be there. So I want to be able to drive into a station and fuel my car with CNG. So investment into those infrastructure have to be there. But if there are only 10 in Lagos of 20 million, for example, it is obvious that that will not help to drive what we're thinking about. So government on its own side, private sector, government encouraging private sector, with funding issues being resolved, then we can have a situation in which rollout of infrastructure will be there. Businessmen can see through their investment, know that if I pull this in place, I will be able to make this much return, and it will encourage them to bring money into that space. I know there's a presidential initiative already in place. So this presidential initiative must rev up its activity. I am convinced that we can make a success of the CNG initiative if we commit to it. We just need to rev things up a little bit. I saw the commissioner of certain buses, about 30 buses by the president recently. Yes, kudos, 30. But it's a country of 200.
Yeah.
So 30 obviously will not cut it. But let's say congratulations for that. But there is a whole lot more to be done in that space.
I agree with you on the CNG thing, and I think we Nigerians need to also accept it, because so many people are very scared of, gas, what if it blows off and all of that. But I want to speak to the issue of the marketers. Apart from the fact that we have crude oil, we either import it or maybe Dangote Refinery will kick off. There are some people called NNPCL. There are some marketers. There are people that are selling it to we the consumers. And for the past couple of days now, they've been queuing at filling stations. Some are selling for different prices. Some are closing their filling stations. Long queues at 4 stations. And I like to ask, let's say this thing finally starts being functional. Will marketers agree with the 600 naira, or will it start with let's start with in Lagos 700, maybe in Lagos 650, in Abuja 700, because marketers will also decide the logistics, the tankers, the drivers. Then before it gets to, and the owners of filling stations get that fuel from different vendors. From NNPCL, it might come cheaper. From second one or third and vendors, it might come more expensive. So would the finished product at the retail filling stations still be 600 naira?
What you have just described now is the typical market dynamics. I lived in another part of the world at some point in my life, precisely in the United States. And in Houston, where I live, I used to go about 4 or 5 streets to go to a particular station to buy fuel. Why? Because the fuel there was cheaper.
Excuse me, we have a caller. A minute, please, Mr. Gbolahan. Good morning to you. You're live.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for calling.
Thank you. Amazing conversation from your guest. I just want to ask a quick question. If we say 600 naira per liter and we have something brewing in the oven, which is the CNG. So if both CNG and the refinery, the Dangote refinery is working, do you think a 600 naira per liter or even lesser than that can be achievable? Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling. Mr. Gbolahan, my bad.
It is achievable. It is achievable. You see, part of what the CNG, part of what the alternative will bring to the table is that we all don't have to start lining up for PMS again. So as people begin to adopt the CNG, I have already made up my mind, for example, that I'm going to convert one of my cars to a CNG vehicle. So as more people adopt, as industries, as manufacturers adopt CNG, as other consumers, you're even using generator. You might say, I don't want to use diesel any longer. I want to adopt CNG for my generator. What that would do is reduce the demand pressure on PMS. When the demand pressure reduces, then it will affect the price. It will put pressure, a downward pressure on the price, because there's now competition. There's an alternative in the market. So it will help a great deal if we're able to drive this change. It will help a great deal to moderate the price of PMs.
Thank you very much. I would have loved to ask more questions or let you conclude on your previous thought, but this is the much we can take this morning. Thank you very much for your time this morning and educating us on the usefulness of CNG and how we should be receptive towards 600 naira per liter.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for your time. Do enjoy a wonderful day. Do have a wonderful day as well. Thank you, ladies. Let's do this again tomorrow.
Thank you.
All right, to you and viewers at home, do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also to watch our Things Takeover by 8 p.m. tonight via our different platforms. So we'll come your way again tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.